Alrighty, so to continue the season preview, we are now going to talk about CF Montreal in the season preview. So this, of course, is year one of the so-called rebuild that the front office last year openly admit that they had to do, and credit to them in terms of admitting that because last season was an absolute disaster. I mean, 6-10-18 was last season's record with 28 points, and obviously did not make it to the playoffs, and everything was a disaster for this team. Both the attack, the midfield, and defense, everything was bad on this team. So what did they did this off season to try to rectify that? Well, they tried to add some defensive pieces. Actually, they spent a lot on the defensive pieces, and now recently add a little bit on the attack as well. And hopefully, these new signings maybe will be the injection of boost that they need in terms of this deep rebuild that they're apparently occurring here this season. Now, last playoff appearance that they have was 2024, but technically, if you don't count the playing round as a playoff appearance, 2022 is the last time that they made it to the playoffs, and that was the magical year under Wilfred Nancy, where they finished second place and have among the most point ever in franchise history. And then the very next year, they let go of Wilfred Nancy, and everything just kind of fell apart. And they're also still looking for their very first MLS Cup. It's hard to believe, but this team at one point was pretty close in terms of that. I remember, I think it was 2016 that they were pretty close of reaching that, went all the way to the Eastern Conference Final, facing in an all Canadian affair, the Canadian Classic against Toronto FC. And while that is definitely going to go down as one of the greatest Eastern Conference Final and one of the greatest playoff two-legged series we have ever seen in MLS history. Yeah, for Montreal fans, they would not want to remember that because they were on the wrong end of a historic playoff matchup that we saw between both of those Canadian team. And to this day, that's the closest that they ever came to reaching MLS Cup. They've never won MLS Cup or even appeared in MLS Cup before. Now, look at the last five seasons. It's been very up and down. Last season was an absolute disaster. 6-10-18, finished with 28 points, did not make it to the playoffs. In 2024, they finished 11-10-13 and finished with 43 points. Did make it to the playoffs in the playing round, but lost to Atlanta at home in the playing round. In 2023, they finished with a 12-5-17 record, finished with 41 points, did not make it to the playoffs. And then they had that very successful 2022 campaign where they finished 25-9, finished with 65 points, but they lost to NYCFC in the second round. And then in 2021, they finished with a 12-10-12 record, finished with 46 points, but also did not make it to the playoffs. And because of the fact that at least when you look at the trend of Montreal seems to make it to the playoffs in the even years, well, this year is an even year, so I guess if the pattern continue going back to 2021, Montreal probably will be able to make it to the playoffs, right? I mean, that might be a telling sign. And there's a chance that they maybe could be because again, they definitely made a lot of signing to address the biggest need that they have early in the offseason. They made a lot of signing in terms of trying to fix the defense. They bought in a complete new back line of bring Brian Vera from RSL and then bring Toto Avalos from Inter Miami. They also brought Agerdan for Holson from Orlando City, and then they recently made a trade to get Wiki Carmona to come to their team, and they trade that in exchange for Jaquil Marshall-Rutty, who of course is now with the New York Red Bulls. Well, by the way, I forgot to mention him in the out list as well, and that was also one of those rare situations where we have a player to play trade that happened. Usually, we don't see that happen as much as when we see in other professional league here in the U.S. They also got Daniel Rios as well, and then they also recently signed Noah Stray from FC Basel. As I said, they got Toto Alves from Inter Miami, and then they also got Ivan Losenko, a very promising Ukrainian player that could maybe provide some creativity to this Montreal team. Looking at players no longer on this team, they let go of Fernando Alvarez, and then they let go of Bryce Duke, who is now with San Diego FC. They also let go of Como Veroni, let go of Dante Sealy, who's now with I think the Colorado Rapids, if I'm not mistaken. No, I'm sorry, it's not the Colorado Rapids. I think he's now with Sporting KC. That is. They also let go of Alessandro Biello, Email Gosdov, who's actually on loan right now, and Felix Sampson, also on loan, but he's actually now on loan with FC Cincinnati. Now, looking at the first 5 games of the season, so one thing about Montreal, just like last season, they have to go on a long road trip. Not because of the fact that they're finishing construction a stadium or sort of thing, but it's freaking cold right now in Montreal. Well, I say that they're not doing a renovation to their stadium Stade Saputo, but technically they're actually doing renovation in terms of a stadium that they usually play their game when it's too cold to play outside in Montreal in the Olympic Stadium. So once that is done, I'm assuming they'll probably be playing there again, especially with the calendar being switched. I think we're probably going to see more games that's going to happen at the Olympic Stadium, which that might not be a good thing because as we all know, even though I know Montreal is spending a lot of money to try to fix up the Olympic Stadium, which that sounds like kind of the thing they've been doing since they built that thing at first in the 70s. But yeah, the Olympic Stadium is just it's a bad stadium, and what makes it even worse is that I wonder if part of the renovation means that they of course fix the turf issue because the turf at Olympic Stadium, a lot of players complain of how bad it is and how it's even worse than playing in a concrete kind of floor that is. And when that is the case, yeah, that's not really a great thing to hear. But while they're doing that renovation of Olympic Stadium, that means their first 6 games is going to be on the road. Starting off against San Diego on the road before going on the road to face against Chicago. Then they go on the road to face against the New York Red Bulls, go on the road to face against Orlando City, and then they go on the road to face against FC Cincinnati. So as I said before, go on the road to start the season. It's always going to be tough, but it's even tougher when you look at some of the teams that they might face on the road, the likes of San Diego, Cincinnati, Orlando, Chicago. Those are not easy teams that they have to face on the road. Now look at the last 5 games of the season. They faced Seattle on the road before facing against Nashville SC, and then they go on the road to face against Charlotte before going on the road to face against NYCFC, and for their decision day game, they get the All Canadian clash against the Vancouver Whitecaps. So if I said that the first 5 games was already tough before, the last 5 games is even tougher. I mean, all those teams that they'll be facing in the last 5 games, all of them made it to the playoffs, and in some cases, some of them finished near the top of their respective conference. Just a murderous row that Montreal has to finish the season, and one that for a team that seems like maybe their upside could be playoff contention. Yeah, that's not really a schedule you want to try to boost your chance to make it to the playoffs and stay in playoff contention. Especially, one of the thing about Montreal that I've said in the past and the narrative that they have is that this team always tends to kind of stay competitive until the end of the season. But yeah, more times than not, they just ran out of gas and just missed out on the playoffs. And when you look at that murderous road to finish this schedule, I won't be sorry. Maybe that might be the same case again heading into this season. Now, look at the strength of this team. I mean, there's really not much strength of this team. I guess the midfield is a bit of strength to this team. The midfield, I think, it is pretty respectable in my opinion. But besides that, everything else is a weakness of this team. And I say this even despite the fact that they definitely done something to address the biggest issue on the defensive end and also on the attacking end as well. I mean, when you look at the first big question, that's the thing that I want to talk about in terms of the defensive front. They completely overhaul their defense this off season. I think the only guy that I think projected to be maybe being that back line in the first game is Lucas Petrasso in that left back position. But other than that, the other player that is on this back line is completely different. Toto Alvarez and Brian Vera will be slot there as the center back partnership, and then you got Dagger Dan Halson being in the right back position and play more of a right wing back like he did during his time with Orlando City. So when you look at that, is that an improvement compared to last season? That definitely will be determined, and especially one thing I am a little bit worried in terms of looking at this new shape back line is the fact that will this back line be disciplined? Because one of the main concern I have when they decide to get Brian Vera and Toto Alvarez, those guys have problems when it comes to not get silly yellow cards and also getting red card as well. I mean, Toto Alvarez, he one of the biggest issue that he had during his time with Inter Miami, he just keep getting red cards. Like he's a very hard nosed kind of defender. He's kind of a no nonsense kind of defender that is not afraid to make those challenges. But unfortunately, more times than not, he become a little reckless in terms of it, and that's why he has had a lot of times for his Inter Miami tenure where he gets red cards because of it. And the same goes for Brian Vera as well. Well, he's not as reckless abandoned as Toto Alvarez could be. He's also a guy that is a bit of a hothead as well. He's very ill disciplined, so I will not be surprised if Montreal might be leading the league in terms of red cards, because when you have two defender that are pretty much red card machine throughout their previous tenure, yeah, that's where I am concerned, because you can improve your back line, and there's no doubt that those two guys I think could do a much better job defensively compared to the defense the player they have last season. But it doesn't really matter if either of those guys can't control their tempers and basically get sent off in a game, because when you get sent off, then now all of a sudden you're going to have a lot of defensive problem because you're going to be playing down to 10 men. And then, of course, on the attack, there is definitely question whether or not if there's enough quality in the attack that was very lacking last season as well. Starting with the playmaking department, I am kind of excited to see Sunchik playing for the first full season. I think he's shown some great ability last season. He's a guy that I think I mentioned. He was a guy that I can't wait to see heading into this year, and kind of like the young player to watch heading into this year. But then after that, there's question regarding to the winger spot as well. Is Ivan Jaime, who's their only DP, is he even a DP quality kind of player? And then you look at some of the new signings that they of course got. They got Daniel Rios kind of back up, got Prince Owusu in that spot. I'm guessing probably Rios will be playing more of a backup player, because Owusu was definitely one of the bright spot that they had last season. He definitely had one of his best season last year, despite how bad that attack is. And in fact, he was pretty much the only offense for Montreal throughout last season as well. They also got that new Noah Strike guy from FC Basel. I don't know too much about him, whether if he can provide some quality on the wing spot. And I said, Sunchuk might be the guy that could be the creative player. Maybe it could be Ivan Lusanko as well. Apparently, Montreal fans are very high on him, and he may be that creative player that they needed. But still, at the end of the day, is there enough quality in this attack? I don't know. I think it is definitely to be determined. I mean, as the old saying goes, when you look at both their defense and attack, they're as bad as it is last season. There's really nowhere where to go but up in terms of heading into the season. It can't be as worse as they did last season, especially with the way that they made some upgrade to the team to trying to booster the quality of both the back line and also on the attack as well. And then last but not least, do they need another goalkeeper? I think so. When you look at their goalkeeping depth, it is not very deep. I mean, they just recently saw Jonathan C. Was, who I believe I actually even put him on the list as well in terms of players that no longer on the team. He's actually now with FC Dallas. So now they only have two goalkeeper, and I believe Gillier is the starting goalkeeper for this Montreal side. He was average last season, though. I'm not gonna say he was terrible, even though his number wasn't there. I mean, he basically had no backline last season. Like any goalkeeper, even the best of the goalkeeper in this league, if you have no backline in front of you and no defense, yeah, you are just going to get hung out to dry time and time again. And I think Julia was that. And now that maybe he has at least a little bit of a competent backline, it will definitely be a good measuring stick to see how good Julia is. But after that, I think, do they still have Sebastian Breza on this team? I'm not quite sure if that they do, but after that, they just have nobody else in terms of goalkeeping spot. Normally, teams would carry three or even four goalkeeper in their roster. So I think that is definitely going to be a spot that they'll definitely need. And maybe a spot where, I know some people will say maybe they'll just get a depth piece in terms of the goalkeeping spot. I don't think so. I wouldn't be surprised if they might even go big in terms of getting that number one, because as I say, with the way that most goalkeeper probably would fail in Montreal because they have no defense. Sometimes when you have the best goalkeeper, maybe they can at least kind of mask the issue that they have at the back line and maybe steal some games. And there are some goalkeeper around this league that can do that, but the problem is there's not really a lot of that within the league, and they might have to look probably overseas or elsewhere to get that goalkeeper. That hope that maybe he's the guy that might steal some games for this Montreal side, because maybe at times the back line could look bad, or in the case as I said about the two ill-disciplined back line. Maybe one of them getting sent off in a game or two throughout this season as well. So look at the high that they have. I actually put them above the playoff line, and that's kind of being generous. But I trust the fact that maybe the defense will completely improve, and the same goes for the attack. All these attacking pieces, they make a huge progress that can definitely surprise a lot of people. Maybe get themselves back in the playoffs. And as I mentioned, it's an even year, and if you go by the trend, usually Montreal would somehow make it into the play-in round or even into the playoffs in an even year. But the low I have is 14th position. I could have put them in 15, but I decided to be a little bit generous by putting them in 14th position because I have a feeling we kind of know who probably will finish 15 this season in the Eastern Conference. But yeah, for them, 14 could be where their floor is going to be, and especially if the signings that they made on the defense completely fall apart like they did last season, and they don't have any quality on the attack as well. Well, wash, rinse, and repeat in terms of what we saw last season of a disastrous year that they have as well. But there you have it. That is pretty much it. Looking at CF Montreal in my season preview. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this season preview. If you're a Montreal fan, what do you think is the strength, the weakness, the free big question, the and your prediction of the high where you're gonna finish or the low where you're gonna finish, and also the expectation is for this team heading into this season. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.